Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R Automotive. Today we have a brand new 2024 Ford Raptor and we've installed the M&R ditch light kit. It offers beautiful amber DRL as well as powerful white light. Alright, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to peel back this rubber trim piece and then we're going to get access to the bolt that we're going to be using to mount our M&R brackets. So with a 10mm socket, I'm going to go ahead and unscrew this bolt. So these are the M&R brackets that we're going to be using. We have the driver's side as well as the passenger. Since we're working on the driver's side, let me show you how to mount it. So the tab of the bracket, the side where the light ends up installing into, is facing backwards. And the vertical side of the bracket is on the outside of the vehicle, so that way the rubber piece can tuck, this rubber trim piece can tuck right into it. So what we're going to do, we're going to thread the same bolt that we've removed in the previous step, and we're going to thread it back. As simple as that. Okay. While you're threading the bolt, just kind of hold the bracket in place so it doesn't move around, because the way you're going to tighten it is how it's going to be installed. There it is. Now I'm going to take out my socket and I'm going to tuck in the rubber trim piece underneath it. Alright, so now we're working on the passenger side. So we're going to take the bolt out. So now that we've removed the bolt, we're going to reinsert it into the bracket. Once again, the tab where the light gets installed goes towards the back, and we're going to go ahead and reinstall it. Now that the bracket's in place, let's go ahead and take our tool out and tuck the plastic into it. Now that we have the M&R brackets installed on a truck, let me show you how I'm going to assemble the pod before we install it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and flip the light on its face. And then I'm going to install these nuts and the nut holders. So what you do, you just slide it in there. The thread's gonna go this way when we mount the U cradle. So I'm just gonna go like this, drop it in. So just drop it in as well. Perfect. So now that the nuts are dropped into the holders, we're gonna go ahead and install the U bracket. There is different ways you can install it, either like this or backwards. I prefer the opening facing forward. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide it and use a supplied bolt to thread it through the bracket and into the nut that we place inside the holder. Keep in mind also, the way you tighten it, you can also adjust the height of how it's going to sit on the bracket. So I personally like my pods as close to the hood as possible, so I'm gonna go press on this bracket inward when I'm tightening it. We can still adjust this afterwards when it's installed on the truck. And that holder prevents that nut that we dropped into that place from moving. So now, this is how the pod looks assembled with the U cradle on the bottom of it. Let's do the same thing to the second one. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the second pod. I'm gonna grab the nuts, I'm gonna drop them into the holders, I'm gonna install the cradle, and I'm gonna use the button head bolts to attach the cradle to the light. I'm gonna adjust the cradle as close to the light as possible. This makes it nice and sleek and close to the hood. And do the same thing on the other side. So now that we have the two pods assembled, let's install them on the M&R brackets that are on the truck. So now we're going to go ahead and thread this bolt through the bottom of the cradle. I'm going to drop it in, and we are going to thread it through the mount. On the bottom end, I'm going to go ahead and put a washer and a nut. It's a little tricky just because there's not a lot of space for your fingers, but you'll get it. So you're going to use a washer and a nut, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten it with a wrench. So I threaded it with my fingers. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a wrench, actually two wrenches, hold with one and wrench with the other. It's a nylon nut, so what that means, it's going to prevent it from loosening up, but the drawback of a nylon nut is that it doesn't spin freely. Now I'm going to adjust it where I want it to be. We'll still adjust the left and right of the pod once we hit the trail, so that way we can see where the beam pattern is. But for now, we can at least adjust the position of it on the bracket. So this is how it's going to be. Do the same thing on the passenger side. I'm going to use a bolt through the U cradle, and then on the bottom of it, I'm going to use a nut and washer. So now that we got this installed, I want to show you two things. Number one, on the passenger side, the light clears the antenna. You do have adjustability of the light to be able to push it out so that way it's not obstructed by the antenna. So on the driver's side, you want to just double check to make sure that the light is not hitting by the windshield wipers, which they're not. So we've installed everything correctly. Now that we've checked the mounting fitment, we can go ahead and start with the wiring. I want to show you guys that the lights, they have 3 wires with them. There is a red wire, which is the main function of the light, which is powerful white light. There's a black wire, which is the ground, and there's a third wire, which is the power to the DRL function. That's to the amber color backload, daytime driving light. So we're gonna actually need 2 power sources, one for the red, one for the white, and the black is just gonna get grounded to the chassis of the vehicle. So with the M&R ditch light kit, you're gonna receive 2 grounding straps, and that's gonna go to the black wire of the pods. And you're gonna receive a wiring harness, and the wiring harness is going to bridge the passenger and the driver's side together, and one of the ends is gonna go connect to the auxiliary switches. So let me show you how I'm gonna route it. I'm gonna route this end here, and that's gonna be for the driver's side. There's a Y intersection of my wiring harness, because it's gonna connect together at the passenger side of the truck, in the engine bay. So this side is gonna span this way and connect to the pod. And then this end is going to connect to the auxiliaries. So let me show you exactly how I do it on the pods. Out of the light pod, so the main function of the light is going to be red. So we're going to connect that to the red. So I'm going to go ahead and crimp the red wire to the red wire of the harness. So we go red to red. And I like to double crimp my crimp connectors so that way they don't come loose. We're going to do the same thing with the white wire. The white wire is the DRL function of the light. So we're going to crimp that to the white color of the wiring harness. So for the black wire, I'm going to use that as a grounding strap. So I'm going to crimp the grounding strap connector on it, and we're going to ground it to the chassis of the truck. So we're going to ground it actually to this fender bolt. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove this bolt, put that eyelid inside that bolt, and rethread it. Alright, so I'm going to thread the same bolt that we just removed and thread it back into the original spot. So now that we connected the pod wires to the wiring harness and grounded it, let's do the same thing on the driver's side. All right, so on the driver's side, same thing. Crimp it to the red wire of the harness. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the white wire. Okay, so the hood hinge is actually a pinch point. You don't want, when closing the hood, for it to have your wire in here and for it to squeeze it, because you can create a short. I'm gonna use the grounding wire, and I'm gonna zip tie the power wire to it, so that way the power wire doesn't come in contact with the hinge. And we're going to do that on both sides. Alright, see, so now when you're opening and closing the hinge, this wire is not going to get in the way. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to use some zip ties, get everything nice and pretty, and far away from any type of pinch points. So now that we have the passenger and the driver's side connected to the harness, the last end of the harness, these are the 2 power sources, and those are the ones that are going to get connected to the auxiliary switch wires. Your Raptor has a total of 6 auxiliary switches, but switch number 1 is used to turn on the factory off-road fog light kits. So we only have switch number 2 to 6 to work with. There is 2 bundles of wires here on the side, and they're all color-coded. One bundle is wrapped in white tape, and one bundle is wrapped with red. The one we're gonna wanna use are the ones with a red tape on them. So those are gonna be the live, connected, controlled by the switches. So let me go over the color code. So aux 1, that's gonna be taken by the factory fog light kit, so you're not gonna be able to connect to aux 1. Auxiliary 2, that's going to be the green wire with the brown stripe. Auxiliary 3, that's going to be the yellow wire. Auxiliary 4 is the brown wire. Auxiliary 5 is blue with orange stripe. And auxiliary 6 is going to be yellow with orange stripe. And also what you want to note is that every wire has a different amp rating. So you want to make sure to put the accessories that take up more amps, probably on 2 and 3, maybe 4. And the weaker ones, like the DRL function, you want to put them on a 5 amp fuse. So that's going to be 5 and 6. So when connecting the lights, we're going to choose the white function of the light, which is the red wire, and we're going to get it to switch number 4, which is the brown wire. And then switch number 6 is what we're going to use for the amber DRL, which is the yellow wire with a orange stripe. So let's go ahead and do that. Of the ground, and we're going to reinstall it. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and test it. So let's go ahead and test them. All right, so with switch number 3, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the powerful white light. And then with switch number 6, we're gonna turn on the amber DRL. Wow, that looks really nice. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to tune in for a night output video, and I know you guys are gonna love the product.